Hey guys, it's me, Michael Lenoci. Make sure you check out some of my upcoming shows. Tickets at michaellenoci.com.
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm wearing a Marlins hat, so you know what that means. You know that our season is over. I know that we don't have the E next to our name, so we're not technically eliminated. But I said, if you watch the previous weeks, I said I was going to be positive, I was going to be hopeful until I felt like we were fully out of it, because that's my job as a fan. And I always said that, and I go, as a fan, why wouldn't you cheer for that and not complain yet? And I'm not saying that this episode is going to be me complaining or bashing things, but I'm going to be realistic with you guys, and we're going to get into it this week, because now I believe we are out of it, and I'm not going to sit here and go, well, statistically, we're still in it, so I'm going to be positive. Yeah, there's a chance that if I watch this Thursday night football game and the Chargers lose, that I get a little bit delusional. Yeah, of course I would. But then also the Chargers would have to lose one more, and their final two games are against the Raiders and Patriots, and I don't think that's a possibility. So that being said, guys, if you know who I am, I'm a stand-up comedian. My name's Michael Lenoci, and my goal is to travel the country doing shows with a bunch of Dolphin fans. And the only way that is possible, if you guys make that happen, by liking and subscribing this channel. I do reaction videos to the Miami Dolphins every week. I try to go to as many games as I can. I try to schedule tour dates around the Miami Dolphins road games. So like and subscribe, comment on my videos, let me know what you think. The previous weeks have been a little rough in the comments because people were against me being positive. Because I said, hey, imagine if we beat Houston. I said, if we win out, we're going to the playoffs. I said that even after the Green Bay game, and I know the Jets game was ugly, but if we would have beat the Texans, everything that needed to happen for us happened. We'd be sitting there going, wow, we're going to go to the playoffs. All we need is, this Broncos-Chargers game is great for us. You know what I mean? Like, we were going to be in a great situation. Everything that needed to happen would have happened. The Steelers wouldn't even have clinched the wild card. They still would have been shaky, and then if they lost to the Ravens, all of a sudden, like, whoa, can this team win out and maybe even get to the 6th seed? Unfortunately, that didn't happen. The Dolphins, in another game where they needed to have it, and it was probably arguably, look, there's been many situations where it was Tua's biggest game of his career. Obviously, last year, playoff games, those are big games, but then this year, like, hey, biggest game of his career, Green Bay. Plays good, defense doesn't show up, we muff a fumble, cost us kind of the momentum in the beginning. Then here's a game where we got to have it. And offensively, we couldn't get in the end zone. We couldn't score a touchdown. We scored one touchdown, all field goals. Offensively, Tua was probably the worst game of his career outside of the Buffalo game week 2. He didn't have it in a big game. And I'm one who's always defended Tua, but then I've gotten hot and cold with Tua. I'm just as guilty as most of you. I've been sitting there and I've been like, he's the guy. He just needs, the right situation. We've seen him do great. Look at the team without him. But then you see a game like that and people are defending him all online. It's 50-50, right? Half the fans are defending him, half the fans are not. And it's very frustrating as a Dolphins fan, because you want to root for him, we like him, but in that game, if you go back and watch the film, there's certain plays where he's rolling out, he misses Tyreek on a crossing route, he misses Waddle before he gets hurt, he's missing certain throws. I know that not all the interceptions are his fault, but he could have made a better throw on some of those interceptions, but a lot of them, yes, are Tyreek's fault. Tyreek has been average. He hasn't been able to create space, but Tua's got to also make plays, man. At the end of the day, we can't rely on, hey, throw the ball to a pocket in the defense where a player can just go get the ball, right? They've always said that in the past, like, hey, be there and Tua will put the ball there. He just is placing the ball in certain areas and it's anticipation. Sometimes he's got to make plays, and especially in a situation where offensively, you can't get anything going. The play calling isn't working. You're not running the ball. Your offensive line is horrible because Armstead's not playing. You lost Austin Jackson, so there's nothing offensively besides our center. He's the only thing that will probably be on the team next year outside of Austin Jackson. which we'll get into later. But when that's going down, that's when you need players like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or even a Burrow or even who else? Those three guys in particular, those four guys, Lamar, Burrow, Allen, Mahomes, can make plays. If there's nothing there and their offensive line is crap and nobody can get open, they can find ways to buy themselves time, make a play, and that's what an elite quarterback does. And you don't even have to be elite. You could be just make a play sometimes. And Matthew Stafford's done that. Even Jared Goff has done that. So that's what's missing with Tua sometimes. And I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but he's never won a game that we needed him to win. And that's a problem because this is year 5. And if you go back to Tannehill's regime, it was year 5 where it was like, do we keep him? He got hurt, so we had to. We did 7 years with Tannehill before we're like, well, what are we doing? So is that what we're going to do again? We're going to do 7 years with Tua and be like, look, we haven't won a playoff game. So we haven't won a playoff game in 5 seasons now. Yes, Tua didn't really play his rookie year, but 5 seasons since Tua's been drafted, no playoff wins, and now you got to ask yourself, it's a half a decade. How long do you want to go? Yeah, we made the playoffs twice, and if you look at it, every team should make the playoffs once every 4 years. Only a couple teams haven't, and that's like the Jets and Broncos, and I forget who the other team was. Maybe the Falcons too. There's been like 3 teams who haven't. Everyone else has made the playoffs at least once in 4 years. But now to win a playoff game, you got to win a playoff game once every 5 years at least. You have to. Otherwise, you got to make changes. And that's what it comes down to. And I was the biggest, I was defending Greer the whole year. I was like, how do we know he's a bad GM? Compare him to other GMs, right? And then I've been watching videos and I stand corrected, okay? At the end of the day, I don't think he's a bad GM. I think he's an average GM, right? From doing my research and hearing about what some of the experts say and comparing it to other GMs, if you look at it and there's 32 GMs, he's around 16, right? That's not good enough. You can be a mid-level GM, but not for 6-7 years, okay? In 5 years, you've produced no playoff wins. You've played 2 playoff appearances. You rebuilt the team. Your star players that you've invested money in are not performing. So we're locked into Tua. He's not going anywhere. You can't get rid of him. So he's our quarterback for at least 3 more years, right? 2 more years for sure. 3 years likely, but in 2 years you can get out of this situation with Tua. That's a mess that you have to deal with. Outside of that, you can move some of these veteran pieces around to rebuild the team. What do I think is going to happen? I would be shocked if nothing happened, right? I would be shocked because at the end of the day, you have a job and your job is to do A, B, and C, and maybe some of those things haven't happened, right? I don't think Mike McDaniel gets fired. I think that would be crazy. I think his first 2 seasons were successful with a little disappointment towards the end of last year. I think he's on the positive side of a win-loss record, more so than any coach we've had in 20 years. His offense has been brutal to watch this year. That could be to the lack of an offensive line, which could fall on the GM. A lot of the blame could be put on the GM. And, who knows what's happening behind closed doors with McDaniel and Greer about personnel. Are they agreeing on what they want? We know people like Devon Achane were Mike McDaniel draft pick. We don't know what other draft picks were not Mike McDaniel draft picks. But Greer put all his eggs in the offensive line for the last 2 years, saying, we're not worried about the offensive line as much as you guys are. And there's been times where the offensive line has looked great, and that's when Armstead and Austin Jackson are in the lineup, and we have a running game. But for the last 3 weeks, there hasn't been a running game, and the offensive line has looked brutal and has cost us a bunch of drives in that last Houston game. So, that's something that falls on Greer too. I don't know what you would get for Tyreek, but someone did put out there, what if we traded Tyreek Hill? I don't know who's going to take that contract. Maybe we have to take on some of his money. But if you did trade him, it opens up a lot more money that you could invest into an O-line, okay, and other players. You could build with Waddle. You draft a young wide receiver. You keep John O. Smith. There's another theory I heard, and this is crazy. I don't know because I don't watch the film as intense or know the scheming as well as maybe ex-players. But someone made a good point of like, hey, this pre-snap motion, they get the play in with 10 seconds on the play clock. Tua's getting the ball out 2 seconds, 3 seconds right away. That's not that beneficial for him. Maybe it's protecting Tua, but we never got to see Tua play in an offense where he could sit in the pocket and he has 4 seconds to throw the ball and he could break a defense apart. And that's true. It's a different offense. Maybe McDaniel has to kind of humble himself and try some different offensive schemes. Maybe the whole offense was built around having these fast wide receivers. They're open down the field quickly, get the ball out quick, and that's been figured out. Obviously, it's been figured out. So what if there's a different style of offense where it's built on a strong offensive line with a strong run game where when he is passing the ball, he has time to throw the ball down the field or find the open receiver because he doesn't have to worry about getting his head knocked in because the offensive line is so bad. We've never seen that side. Someone made that point, and they think, hey, Tua can be great in that offense. Yes, I don't think Tua is one of the elite quarterbacks, and he has his limitations, and I was agreeing with them when I was hearing this. They made a good point. They're like, if you put Tua on the Lions offense, he would be just as good as Goff. And that was the first time I had ever heard a situation where if you put Tua in another situation, would he still be good? Because I've always said, if you put Tua on the Bills, would they be good? No. If you put Tua on the Chiefs, would he be as good? I don't know. But if you put him on the Bengals, would he be good? I don't think so. Not like Burrow. There's certain situations I don't think he could run the team as well. Could he do what Herbert's doing in Los Angeles with the Chargers? Possibly, yeah. But certain situations I don't think he would thrive, okay, where there's maybe a really bad O-line. But there's certain situations where he would do well. My argument against Tua was if you took Herbert or Burrow or Mahomes or Lamar or any of these guys and you put them in the Miami Dolphins offense with that bad line, would they do better than Tua? And I thought for sure. If you had Josh Allen or Herbert in the Miami Dolphins offense, regardless of this, that they would do just as well, if not better, in some situations, especially when the O-line breaks down and he has to make plays. That's my only argument, that there is certain players who could do better in Tua's situation. I'm not saying that Tua's not good and he has some things that he's great at, but what do we do? You know what I mean? Like, where would he do well? Would he be able to have as good of a record with the Eagles? That's a different offense. The way Jalen Hurts runs the ball. You know what I mean? Like, certain guys, you could put them in any situation, they're going to do great. Okay? Would Goff do just as good as Tua in Miami? Probably. You know what I mean? How would Tua do in Minnesota? As good as Darnold, if not better? Maybe. Maybe that's a situation. So he is a guy who can lead a team. He could definitely be doing what Minnesota's doing with an elite defense, but we don't have the elite defense. They probably have a way better line than we do. They're 11-2. There's no reason that if they had Tua, they couldn't do just as good with him. So you can build a team like the Lions or the Minnesota Vikings in Miami. It's whether or not Mike McDaniel is willing to switch his style of play or style of offense. He was bought into this offense that he built for the first 3 years, and it was great for the first 2 years. But it's been figured out. And right now, you can't only score 13 points in a must-win game. And the defense did everything they could. 10 points on turnovers, you get a sack fumble, gets them a touchdown, and then a pick six before half gets them a field goal. That's 10 points right there. They won 20-12. So defensively, we were there, and you got to kind of like what Anthony Weaver's done. He's done a pretty good job with what he's had, although I think the secondary has not been as good as it was supposed to be. So there's a lot of problems on this team, and ultimately, somebody has to pay, right? You get 3 years as a coach usually, and you want to progress. I think he overachieved his first year, and his second year, they started off hot. I don't think he gets fired. I would be shocked. I think he gets a fourth year. It just seems likely that the GM gets fired because I'm hearing about that around other TV shows, other sports shows, and it's his sixth year as the GM with no playoff wins. So how long do you, and he's been with the team since like the early 2000s. I know he's really close with the owner, but ultimately the owner and his team of people, they're going to talk, they're going to hear what people are saying. And when a job isn't being done, there's consequences. And that's what it comes down to. I think every 5 years, a team should have a playoff win. All 32 teams. And that goes for everyone. That's how the NFL is built. It's competitive enough for people to get good with drafting and free agency. There's no reason every team shouldn't be able to win at least one playoff game every 5 years. So if you're not in the right direction after 5 years, after a major rebuild, then there has to be some consequences, okay? And in that rebuild, you had two different coaches. That was your decision as a GM. Whether you and Flores didn't get along, but it seemed like Flores had something there. Maybe he just needed an offensive-minded guy. Imagine if Flores didn't get fired and McDaniel was hired. You could argue we'd be in the Super Bowl. Whatever happened, that relationship went south. So, for that reason, I apologize for being overly positive the previous weeks. I mean, I was in Houston, and I'm exhausted. That's why this episode came out so late, because I got sick, because we partied in Houston, and I had to come back here, and it was a disappointing game to be at. I left once we got the ball and we got the holding call. That should have been a safety in the end zone. I got up and I left, and I go, I have to leave, because I was leaving at times, and plays would happen, so I felt like that was the luck. So I walked out of the stadium, and we lost anyways. The O-line is trash, right? I know there's been times where they look good, but it's because Tua's throwing the ball every 2 seconds. Austin Jackson has improved, and he's a great run blocker, and I think that he'll be there next year, and the center will be there. The center has been our only good piece. Here's certain players I don't think will be with the team, for sure. I think it's likely that Teron Armstead is gone. I think it's likely Javon Holland doesn't get re-signed. He's going to want more money than he deserves. He's been missing tackles. Yes, he saved us game 1 and knocked a fumble against the Jaguars, but he's not been the same. Jordan Poyer hasn't been great. Calais Campbell, obviously, he won't even be with the team before the season ends, because they're going to waive him so he can go to a contender. Good luck to him. Eichenberg, I don't know if he comes back. This is his 4th season, or this might be his 4th season. Do they even re-sign him? Mostert is gone. Why? I don't know. Maybe he's not. But you like your other two young running backs. Fuller, I think he was on a 1-year deal. What's the point? We got to make money and find these other guys. I think you have a young defense that you want to build around, and that's with Jordan Brooks and Zach Sealer. Those are your 2 guys, and Chop Robinson. You got 3 core pieces, right? That's not a bad core to have a young defense around. Jordan Brooks, Chop Robinson, and Zach Sealer. Anybody would love those, okay? Now you bring in some secondary people, and you got Ramsey as your vet. All right, he's locked in. So you got those 4 guys. Those are your 4 guys of that defense. They're going to be the face of the defense. You want to draft a safety. You want to bring in, obviously, you got Jalen Phillips coming back and Bradley Chubb. They're both under contract. So the defense is not in a bad situation. You add in some young draft picks, not so bad. But I don't want to get too crazy into the offseason, because we don't know what's going to happen. We have to see what happens. But that's my assumption. Offensively, I think you run it back, right? You run it back offensively, but you only have, you have Austin Jackson in your center. That's it. So then maybe after you move some money around, I don't know if you trade Tyreek. I don't know if someone's going to take that, but you bring in a left tackle. You drafted a player, whether it's a guard or tackle. You could bring in 2 guys. Bring in 2 guys from free agency and draft a guy. And you can even draft 2 guys. And then maybe Paul, that tackle, develops and he becomes a starter. I don't know if he gets better. But I don't think that this team is necessarily a mess. And I don't think that we should be doing a major blow-up. I disagree with a major blow-up. I think you run it back with McDaniel and a new GM. And you just see what kind of offensive scheme you could come up with when you have a strong O-line. And you don't have to depend on this pre-snap motion. But that's if McDaniel can change that. If he doesn't change it and we start next year off slow and offensively we can't get the ball rolling, then he's out. And he knows that he's on the hot seat, right? So that's my argument about Tua. We haven't seen Tua in a different style offense. He had a different offensive coach his first 2 years with Flores. But now that he has this confidence, he's been playing a while, What would he be like in a different offense? We don't know. We've been spoiled from seeing such an amazing offense that we believe that this is the best offense for him. But maybe this offense is so complex that he's doing well in it, but he could do better in other offenses. We saw horrible play from backup quarterbacks in this offense. So maybe this offensive scheme isn't that great. I don't know, but that's just a theory from what I've been watching. I was watching a lot of other shows this week to kind of gain an opinion about what I think will happen. But at the end of the day, yeah, Tyreek's been average this year, guys. He's been average. You could argue he doesn't create space. That last interception, he can't even get a jump ball. He was shut down in that Houston game. Maybe that ball can get thrown a little further too, right? It's underthrown. Tua did play an awful game too, though. Let's not forget that. And then his completion percentage has been great because we throw so many screens. But Tyreek, I don't know if he's injured or it's just he's banged up or next year he can be elite again. I don't know. So that's a question. Do you move on for him? I don't want to move on for him. I like him. He's exciting, and I want to believe that he can be great again. But if you move him, then you have money to get some better linemen. You know what I mean? And with Waddle and another young receiver and someone for cheaper, you still can have speedy guys. You're throwing the ball to H-in most of the time anyways. You have him and Waddle. It's still a fast offense. Tyreek's going to be a question mark going forward. Whether they keep him or not. That would be something to look forward, and that's going to come up to the next GM, assuming our GM gets fired. Do I think they run it back with all three? 2 weeks ago, I go, yeah. I thought, hey, they're going to give Greer, McDaniel, they're going to run it back one more year. After this week of watching things and hearing other people's arguments, yeah, I would think Greer is gone. I would be shocked if McDaniel was gone too, and I think it would be a little nerve-wracking because now you're bringing in a whole new team, and it feels like, all right, what are they going to do? Then it's like it's a kind of a mini blow-up. But I assure you, Tua's not going anywhere because nobody's taking that contract. So he's our starting quarterback for at least 2 more years, if not 3. So I promise you that Tua's not going anywhere. Nobody's taking that. It is what it is. You bring in a vet. Maybe it's Kirk Cousins. Maybe you draft a guy. You can bring in someone that is either suitable enough to run with this team or a backup that is there and plays like a Jordan Love role and sits there for a few years and maybe kind of takes over if Tua's not the guy. Or you kind of give him the shot. Our special teams coach, I guess he's awful. I don't pay attention to that a lot, but he's got to get fired. Mike McDaniel's got to make some adjustments on the staff. That's one point that was made. This guy, the fake punt return cost us the game. That led to a touchdown. That's 7 points right there too. I mean, the defense dominated the Texans. They did everything they could. Special teams play takes it all the way down to the 5-yard line. They get a touchdown. They get another touchdown after the sack fumble, and then they get a field goal after the pick six, almost pick six. That's 17 points right there. So we held them to a field goal, and that was the first drive. That's a frustrating loss right there. That's a very frustrating loss. Special teams, they fumble one against Green Bay. If we don't fumble it, the whole momentum's changed in that game. So special teams coach is out. Yeah. Now, is there a scenario where something crazy happens and the Chargers lose tonight and we see hope? Yeah, if we were to beat the 49ers, but do I think we're going to beat the 49ers? No, I don't. I don't expect to beat the 49ers. I expect to beat the Browns. Maybe we beat the Jets. Maybe we don't. We go to New York at that point, players checked out. They don't play. So maybe we lose to the 49ers. We get to 6-9. We beat the Browns. We're at 7-9. And then we are playing backups the last game of the season and we let them win and we go 7-10. I think that could put us in the top 10. Okay? Is there a world where I hope that now we do lose? And if I look at the league, 7-10, yeah, 7-10 would put us at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're probably around the 11th or 12th pick. So I haven't studied college and what the draft prospects are, but ideally, we're going to be around best case scenario, 11th or 12th pick overall. Worst case scenario, 15th or 16th pick overall. So mid-round, you're not going to move up and draft a quarterback. It's not logical, but I think at 11, though, you can get one of the best linemen in the draft, which is absolutely what you should be doing. You could take the best lineman, one of the best tackles or guards right there, and you could probably, maybe you can move Tyreek for some picks too. To someone who's just like, all right, we'll take this. We're right there. We're close to winning a championship. I'm throwing out hypotheticals. I know this is early because we still have 3 more weeks left, but we got to find a way to be excited. Okay? I don't know. Where are some landing spots for Tyreek? You wouldn't trade him in your division. If he did go to the AFC, you would move him where? Back to the West to really mess with the Chiefs. Chiefs aren't going to take him again. But how funny would that be if you sent him to Denver? Or if you sent him to the Raiders? They draft a young quarterback and get Tyreek. Imagine the Raiders got Ward and Tyreek. That's a fun team with Bowers. Woo! Wouldn't that be fun next year? That would be a fun team. They have draft capital. New coach there. Tom Brady has influence. Throwing that out there. Either way, man, typical Dolphins year. And what are we going to do? All you can do is look forward and try to hope that something gets fixed. But this has been the best 5 years we've had in my lifetime. So you got to look at last year, the year before, we got some exciting memories of that Tua Tyreek McDaniel offense. It was exciting at times. Unfortunately, it's fizzled out, but it was fun. It was fun while it lasted. Unfortunately, it resulted in no playoff wins. And it's frustrating and it hurts, but it's exciting now. It's exciting to think, oh, what are we going to do? That's how great the NFL is, man. And here comes me being positive, but that's how exciting the NFL is. You get to be excited about ooh, I wonder how they're going to rebuild this team. Because I believe that it's a subtle rebuild. I think there's core defensive players that come back, core offensive players that come back, new GM, get some draft capital, and kind of just hey, I still think going into next year, we're a playoff caliber team, and that's our expectation as a fan base. I don't think next year we're sitting here in August going, it's going to be a rough year. I think we're going to sit there and go, all right, we're a playoff team. Let's go. And I believe that. So there is still hope, and I don't think the Mike McDaniel regime is over yet. Okay? Let me know what you think in the comments. That's all I got to say this week. Salute to all the loyal Dolphin fans that are here for the positive outlook on things. And, I like when you guys are mad and angry and you talk your shit in the comments. So keep doing that. If that's the way for you to release your frustration, go about it. Use me as your therapist. I know it's frustrating. And, call out my bullshit. Say I'm stupid and blinded and ignorant. I deserve it all. Because I like to be, and I'm stupid. I'm a stupid idiot. And I shouldn't have believed that we were going to make a playoff run. What a loser I am. You were right. I was wrong. I'll see you guys next week. Goodbye.